Right guys, Dan Hendrickson here at Torquay Golf Club, hashtag Ask Dan. I've had a tweet come in from a chap called Jay. So Jay has asked me to look at how I move ball flight around. We're going to have a little look at moving ball position around to maybe change my flight heights and see what actually happens deeper in the numbers when we actually move these balls around with ball position. So let's hit some shots, let's get some numbers and report it back to Jay as to what we're actually doing. Right, so I've got my tour stick. So this is going to measure where the golf ball is in relation to my stance. And then I've got my ruler. Now for the first part, I'm going to set it up between my heels. So the idea is that my heels kind of indicate what is centre in the stance and what is further forward or further back in the stance. The reason for this is because I can get my feet turning out a little bit with the left foot, certainly turns out more, and then can start to distort what is actually the middle of my stance. So I'm going to use a 7-iron, any 7-iron, just pull that out of the bag. But the idea is that it's dotted up, we can get some more numbers, more details as to what's happening with my path, my angle of attack, my launches, my peak heights, all of those sorts of numbers that we're trying to get from this particular video. For the first few shots, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up to where I feel is my natural ball position. So centre there for what I feel is centre, and then ball position for me with a 7-iron, if I was kind of moving that into the right spot, that would be about where I would want it, which is 1.5 inches forward of the centre point between my feet. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is my normal ball position is 1.5 inches forward of centre. I'm then going to put one in the centre of my stance, and then I'm going to put another one 1.5 inches back of centre, and let's just see what numbers we get with those. So for me, with a normal position like this one here now, my swing path is normally a baseline around sort of 1-2 degrees in to out. So the feeling I'm going to get is as I start to move that ball position maybe slightly back in my stance, maybe my path should start working more in to out. 1.5 inches back, might move it a degree, might make it 5 degrees, I'm not sure yet, we'll have to look at the numbers. Now just moving that ball position back, I'm going to make sure the butt of the club is still pointing in the same direction, so I've still got the same shaft lean that I'm getting, but ultimately as that goes further and further back in the stance, I'm still pointing it at the sort of loophole of my left pocket here. You can see there that the loft of the club should start to de-loft, and this is where we're going to start to hopefully see a lower launch, probably a lower spin, and hopefully keep that ball flight down a little bit more. Definitely when I'm getting into wind, this is more what I'm trying to feel like I'm doing, is just keeping that ball position more in the centre. I've never really thought of it like this because I always thought it was further back, but that's actually quite centred in my stance between my two heels. I'm not doing anything different in my swing, I'm just trying to let it happen naturally. As soon as I move that ball position that far back, I mean that's 1.5 inches further back than what is centre, so that's now what, 3 inches further back than where I would naturally have it. It's a sort of position that I would put it in if I was really trying to hook it round maybe a tree, or I've got stuck behind in something, so if I needed to come out low with a lot of hook, then I would push this ball position probably this far back. But very rarely would I do this, let's say in a normal shot, to try and keep that ball flight down. It's just going to create way too much curvature, I feel, because my path is going to really work into out, I imagine. Again, keeping that handle in the same position, taking off now. There's very little loft on this now. As I'm moving that ball position further and further back, that handle is still in that position. That loft has really come off the club. It's maybe a fraction hard work, but definitely that's the sort of shot that I'm trying to do if I'm really trying to hook it out from being in trouble. Okay, so I've hit 5 shots with each position. Let's look at the numbers, let's see what each position gets. Okay, so we've got 5 shots with my 7-iron in my normal position, then we've got 5 shots in the centre here, and then down the bottom we've got a further 5 shots, but ball position way back, or 1.5 inches further back. Let's look at how they launch off the face. So again, this is subject to strike to be fair, but look at that. So 19.4 launch. I'm using an AP 17-iron here, compared to 16.8. So launching it, what's that? Just 3 degrees slightly lower. And then what's the bottom one? 14.6. So definitely starting to get different launches off the face of the club. So peak height with the first normal ball position, so 36 yards average in height, peaking out at 40 yards high. Then ball position more in the centre, you can see that it's dropped down by 3 yards on an average, which is significant. You know, you will start to see that in the flight when you hit shots. So look there, off the back foot, averaging 29 yards high when that ball position gets right back 1.5 inches further back than the centre, 3 inches further back than my normal position, but definitely getting it a lot lower in the peak height. So definitely on the golf course, you're going to see a big difference when that drops from 36 down to 29, moving that ball position around. You're going to start to see that quite noticeably on the golf course when you hit your shots. If we look, spin with the 7-iron with my normal is at 6.6. When the ball position moves more to the centre, you can see that it drops to 6,000. And then again, if you see when ball position drops down again, so ball position moves right back, it can drop down to 5.4. So you can see that the spin will start to reduce as that loft drops down, the spin drops down. So yardage, we can see there 167 average with my standard position. When the ball position moves more to the centre, it goes up to 174. So 177 when you move that ball position right back. Let's get a bit more detail with regards to the actual club data. Now remember, I said with the ball position normal for me, my path is around probably 1 or 2 degrees into out, depending on the day that what I produce on that day. But you can see there 0.8 into out path. Angle of attack down on the ball is 3.9, so around 4 degrees for me is about normal. Look at my loft here, 27.4 with the AP1 7-iron. So that's again pretty normal for what I would expect. When you move into the ball position more centre, look at how much it started to move. What's that? Nearly like 4.5, nearly 5 degrees in the move from path going from in to out to even further into out. So that's a bigger move than what I was probably anticipating before I did this experiment. I would have said it might move maybe 2 degrees, but you know, that's nearly 4.5, 5 degrees. That's a big change with only moving it just what I feel is a fraction further back in the stance. Angle of attack down on the ball. Now interestingly, look, ball position moving back, my angle of attack is moving down. Even though my path is moving more into out, my angle of attack is still, what, 1.5 to 2 degrees further down on the golf ball. And loft, let's look at loft here. So we've got a 27.4, which is about right for what I normally do. And then losing, what, nearly 4 degrees in loft when that ball position moves further back. Let's look further down at the ball position further back in the stance. Look at that into out path now, again moving significantly. We're up to nearly 10 degrees into out with that path. That is hard to manage that. Angle of attack down on the ball 6.3, so again keep coming down a little bit steeper again on the ball. And then loft again, so moving it a further 2 degrees down onto the ball. So I actually think that's a really, really good experiment. Now, there are many ways in which you can start to look at reducing the height of the flight of the ball that you're hitting, but this is a really, really good one. And I think that what you need to be doing with this one is trying this out on the range. So move ball position around, have a little experiment with this. When I was a kid growing up, you know, I played around with this a lot to try and control the flight of what I was trying to get with the club in my hand. And also you've got to be able to manage the path of the club. You could see that my path was moving drastically as I was moving further and further back. You've got to be able to manage that, and you've got to be able to manage your hands and the club face with that. You should be going to the range and not just hitting shot after shot after shot. You should be going to the range experimenting with definitely different flights and different heights, and also watching the curvature of the ball as well. Good experiment. I hope it all makes sense. It's certainly just one way in which you can start to move flight around. But let me know, have you been out and tested this? Do you do this when you get into windy conditions, into wind, downwind even? Do you try and hit different types of shots when you're practicing to try and get yourself ready for these different types of conditions and different situations on the golf course? I definitely see myself regularly moving that ball position more towards the centre and just trying to hit that little lower flight. So moving it 1.5 inches further back than centre, so 3 inches further back than normal. That would be a very rare situation for me, and that would be one, like I said, trying to hit it maybe round trees or trying to come out of trouble. I would maybe opt into that. Let me know. Thank you very much for watching. #AskDan, and I look forward to catching up with you all again soon.